everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel where we do painting tutorials. Today I have a loose and easy beginner-friendly watercolor landscape with just one color. The only color I'll be using throughout this whole painting is Dusk Green by Van Gogh. I recently picked it up at the art store and I just wanted to try it out because they have this almost shimmery kind of set they released, I believe, last year, and then a metallic set, but I really want to see how this right here performed. So feel free to use whichever is your favorite color. You can use a purple, you can use indigo, you can use a red or a rich earthy tone, whatever color you like. I've started by pre-weighing my paper with just some clean water, and then I apply some of this green to the top. I let it diffuse downwards to get a very soft, hazy sky, and then I do the horizon line again with the same green. I'm just gonna use that for literally everything. And I try to leave a little upside down slanted V shape for a little pathway there. I do apply just a smidge of color in the center, and then I clean up my edges with a paper napkin. I go over the sky once more to just darken up while everything is wet. I just focus my color at the very top, and then with the tip of the brush I dab over the horizon to add some very distant trees, some greenery there. And I don't need to define this because the paper is wet, so the paint is gonna diffuse on its own to the wet background, creating some very loose shapes there. You don't need to do anything extra, like just leave it to do its own thing. Then I apply whatever excess color I have left over my brush over that path. I do want to be rather bright, but I don't want to be straight white, like paper white. And then I add some lines that just give you the feeling of direction that is taking us to the first point in this painting. And I add more paint on the sides of the road because I want to have a little overgrown grassy situation there that's going to be casting some shadows onto the path. So that is why I outline it with more paint, and then with just a clean wet brush I go over and under these two lines that are framing the pathway so they can diffuse softly into our background. And once it has had a moment to dry, I go and paint some distant trees there in the background, one smaller one and one larger one. This is just a base layer upon which I'm going to add shadows later on to really make it pop, to really make it look more realistic. But for now, I'm just gonna paint one solid layer of tree, like one solid blob of paint. You don't even need to give it a tree shape. We'll do that at a later time. And then I just swoosh under them to add a very simple and easy shadow. Then I proceed to further darken up the sides of the road with more paint, and I go with a wet brush behind the paint so it can blend into my previous layers. And please note, I'm using 100% cotton paper for this. I usually tend to use cellulose or a mixture, but if you want a very soft and diffused background where the colors bleed seamlessly into each other, where you just apply one dab of paint and it goes everywhere, I do advise you to use cotton paper because it holds water longer compared to cellulose paper and really helps with achieving that diffusion, that nice watercolory effect we all see on social media. And also, since this is cotton paper, it's actually Fabriano artistico. If you're interested in the supplies, they're all gonna be linked down in the description. But what this paper right here does is it does tend to hold onto a lot of water. So when it dries, it's gonna be much lighter than what it looks like while it's wet. So this is why I go over multiple times, like on the sides of the road, as you can see right here, to really make sure they're nice and saturated, because I know they're gonna dry much lighter than what they appear right now. And also, it does take longer to dry, at least in my personal experience, compared to cellulose paper or mixture. Sometimes you see like 35 or 25% cotton and the rest is cellulose. Sometimes it's 100% cellulose, but yeah, this here does take extra to dry. Just leave this to air dry if you can, because I do find if you use a hair dryer, sometimes you get some strange puddles or cauliflower effects. Just to keep it on the safe side, if you can, let it to air dry. Then I keep on again darkening the sides of the road because I want those to be pretty much my darkest point for this whole painting. And I leave everything to fully dry. That was about 20 to 30 minutes in my case. Then I take more of the green and I start applying shadows over those large trees I have in the distance. I'm mostly tapping the paint on the bottom side of the tree crowns, and on the left sides I want to leave the top right empty for now, like blank. That way the first layer appears almost like a highlight kind of situation. So yeah, just apply more paint on bottom left sides of the tree crowns and you'll be fine. I'm just tapping here, there's no specific order, nothing special, and then I add more paint beneath them for the shadow that is beneath the trees, and I want to gently pull it out a bit more into the little pathway there. And with more paint, you guessed it, I'm gonna darken up the parts of the pathway that are closest to us, aka closest towards the bottom of the paper. To get a seamless transition, a wet brush works magic. And on the bottom two corners there, I'm gonna add some random greenery, some random bushes with just some straight lines, and I'm gonna tap over them to add some tiny leaves. And by the way, this paint right here was the full-time Patreon tutorial I did for the month of July over at my Patreon page, Sunshine Arts. There is also a traceable of this painting if you would like to first sketch it out with a watercolor pencil and then paint over it if you don't feel confident enough drawing. Also digital downloads of my artwork, and like I said, full-time painting tutorials. I believe the original one was a bit over half an hour. So if you're interested in any of that, links are gonna be down in the description. And oftentimes people ask how long it takes me to do a painting because what you see on YouTube is usually the sped up version. Just painting itself for this one right here was about 30-35 minutes, and then drying time takes extra, so I'd say a good hour is a bit of a tight time frame, but it usually does take that much. And here I got a little tiny brush. I believe it was a freebie with some art supplies I got, and I'm just doing some tiny lines, some tiny curves that like frame the pathway, fall onto it, and I tap over them for some tiny blobs, some tiny dots. They're gonna be leaves. I add some I and V shapes to those trees I have at the horizon, those tiny smudges of paint I did with the bigger brush, and I do that because I want some very tiny visible tree trunks for them. Lastly, with the tiny brush, I paint some birds flying over the sky because why not? And proceed to slowly peel off the tape in the opposite direction to avoid ripping my paper. I'd like to give a very special thank you to my Patreon supporters for the month of August, and thank you all for watching. If you found any value or use in this video, let me know down in the comments, and we'll see each other in the next one. Bye bye!